What's up, gamers? I hope everybody's having a wonderful day today. So, recently, Doom the Dark Age is released, and it's really fun. I thought it was a fun and interesting evolution of the Doom gameplay that provides plenty new, but also still sticks to what makes Doom great. That being arcadey, fast-paced combat with a lot of really cool guns. Now, that's not to say the game is perfect, I do have some gripes with it, but overall the game is really good, and I would highly recommend anybody check it out, assuming, of course, that your PC is up to spec to be able to do so. Or you can play on console, you know, that works too. But if you recall the release of Doom Eternal back in 2020, you'll remember there was a lot of people complaining about that game for mostly the wrong reasons, and that is definitely happening here as well. Such is the case for the video we're about to take a look at, which argues that Doom the Dark Age's designers thinks you're dumb, and comes from a YouTuber by the name of Second Wind. And most of his complaints make zero sense if you've actually played the game or understand what Doom is about, so anyways, let's go ahead and get right into this.
In the Dark Ages, just like the developers did in Eternal, they've attempted to freshen up exploration between combat by adding platforming elements, but the problem lay in how these designs have been approached, because it seems as if Doom the Dark Ages designers think you're dumb. First of all, the game leaves nothing up to the player's interpretation. Paths of progression are clearly signified by non-diegetic symbols telling you where to go and even what mechanic is needed to get past it.
So you mean to tell me Doom the Dark Ages directs the player down the main path, which, you know, both Eternal and 2016 also did? Like, I really don't see why this is only suddenly now a problem.
Now, I can forgive this if it's on a map, but through all standard exploration, having the player see a key through a window, that's not enough. They need to have a floating line coming off of it so you can see its location from all possible angles.
I really don't see how this is any more egregious than putting something like an objective marker on the key cards like they did in Doom 2016 or Eternal.
Not only is what to do clearly signposted, so there's no sense of discovery or problem solving, but you can only climb what the devs see fit, only grapple where they tell you you can do so. For example, these green corpses protruding from the walls somehow mean that you can grapple to them. They just yoink you up from point A to point B. And considering these are never used in combat scenarios, they might as well have just been stairs for what they do mechanically.
Now, admittedly, I do think some of these could have been implemented into combat arenas. I think that would have added an interesting dynamic. Having said that, these mechanics when used in traversal are not meant to be all that challenging in and of themselves. This is the same thing as the platforming in Doom Eternal, and the reason for it is to give a way to break up the combat arenas and give the player a brief respite in a way that's more engaging than just walking down a corridor or watching a cutscene. The challenge in Doom the Dark Ages, much like all the other games in the series, comes directly from the combat.
And this extends to any and all interactions with traversal, all overly signified busy work that even at its strongest points when used to hide secrets, just break immersion. Do you know what really fucks with the vibe of the Doomslayer character as a whole? He has weapons that can rip through time and space and can punch through a demon's armored chest like it's a children's papier-mâché art project, but can't bust through 3 planks of wood. Can jump off a building with no issue but can't clamber over this 4-foot ledge to get the item I need. These are examples of every video game essayist's favourite term to throw around, ludonarrative dissonance. Not you. They use these gaps to signify where the rewards might be, but do it in a way that breaks the verisimilitude of the world and believability of what the Doomslayer is actually capable of.
And had we been talking about a completely different game, I might have actually agreed with this. But the thing is, this is a Doom game. Doom games are unapologetically arcadey. The appeal of Doom is not storytelling and immersion, it's pure uncut fun. This is the same reason that demons in Doom Eternal could be simultaneously frozen and on fire.
By this logic, the best defense against the Slayer would be to fortify hell with a bunch of knee-high walls. And let's just say that you resound yourself to go around and hunt for these rewards. There is no challenge at all because everything is so heavily signified. You vaguely walk in the direction of the thing you want and wait to see a glowing symbol, and that will always be the answer.
Actually, no. When it comes to those shield-bashing circles, they're only glowing when it's important to main progression throughout the level, but when hunting for secrets, they're a much darker shade of blue that's harder to spot. And other similar mechanics that might be used to hide secrets, such as superheated metal that you have to throw your shield at, is usually hidden in small little nooks and crannies that you can't really see unless you look at it from the right angle. For example, in the Abyssal Forest level, there was a secret I was hunting for a solid 5 minutes until I finally found the exact angle I needed to throw my shield at a superheated superheated piece of metal to break it so I could enter an area and get some goodies. Now, are some secrets hidden better than others? Yes. But in many cases, you'll only know the general area you need to search and not the exact spot you need to go to find the secret.
There is quite literally no challenge to be seen outside of combat.
So again, like every other fucking Doom game, it's not difficult to do an easy platforming section to reach a secret in Doom Eternal. It's not difficult to hump the walls to find secret areas in classic Doom. Now, granted, you might not know where those secrets initially are, but once you do, the amount of mechanical skill required to obtain them is very minimal. So why is it only now a problem when Doom the Dark Ages does the exact same thing?
Fire trap timing challenges, you can simply walk around while they're still actively spewing flames. Projectiles slowly flying towards you that can be blocked with a single button press.
I love how your proof of this is to literally show the fucking tutorial section in the first mission that teaches you that you can block projectiles with a shield. You know, a mechanic that you're gonna use in this game's combat loop. You know, God forbid that a tutorial designed to teach you a basic concept of the gameplay is not all that challenging.
Spikes protruding from the ground, static, motionless, that do nothing and can be destroyed instantly. If these things were introduced during combat as added challenges, I could forgive it, but they're all explored outside of combat, so what is the point?
Like I said before, it's a way to provide a respite between combat arenas in a way that's more interactive than just watching a cutscene or walking down a corridor. Alright, I'm gonna skip past this next section because I think he brings up a good point how there was some missed potential about the shield mechanisms, and how there could have been some sections where you throw your shield to activate a mechanism and then have to briefly fight without it.
And to top it all off, this game is probably the easiest of the bunch, and the only friction you're going to feel during gameplay, mate, is your thighs rubbing together, because each enemy has the exact same attack pattern that they simply regurgitate.
Well, no fucking shit!
Obviously, Doom the Dark Ages, much like every other game in the series besides Doom 3, is a classic-style arena shooter. And one of the things that Doom and many other arena shooters do is have a variety of different enemy types with consistent behavior throughout the game that are then recombined into different combat arenas with different combinations of enemies. Like, I really don't see why it's suddenly an issue for Doom the Dark Ages to do the same thing that the series has been doing since 1993, and something that is one of the core appeals of the Doom franchise.
And early on, they give you this stake gun that can effectively give itself infinite ammo when comboed with the shield, which you're gonna do because it can stun larger enemies, instantly take out smaller packs, and explode them as we mentioned before. And doing this empowers the upgraded stake gun, making it capable of one-shotting most enemies, meaning the majority of my run was this Van Helsing cosplay kit running stakes into demons like it was going out of fashion. Just look at the final boss's face! Why didn't I use other weapons? Well, within a couple missions of finding this gun, I had it and the shield fully upgraded, so why would I intentionally make myself weaker if they're both capable of such brutality?
Well, this is an under the Mayo ultra kill moment if I've ever seen it. Oh, I'm just gonna stick to one tactic throughout the entire game, refuse to experiment, and complain that I stick to this one tactic. Like, just for the sake of due diligence, I decided to try out his strategy and compare it to the strategies that I've been using normally throughout the game, so I decided to play through the Carthul Marshes mission on Ultraviolence. By the way, this is on a save file where I have all the upgrades unlocked, and well, this is how long it took for me to beat the level using the stake gun, shield, and melee only. And this is how long it took when I was using a wide variety of different weapons. Another thing is that in my stake only run, I died 15 times, whereas in my regular run, I only died once. And I can also confirm that the idea of the empowered stake one-shotting everything is complete bullshit, even if we were to extend that definition to not just killing, but also just putting an enemy in their glory kill state. This would only happen with fodder demons, imps, and if I hit a headshot, Hell Knights. The only way I could see this happening is if he's playing on a lower difficulty, and if that's the case, then the solution to your problem is to play on a higher difficulty like Ultraviolence or Nightmare. And fun fact, unlike Doom Eternal, you can actually change the difficulty you're playing on in the middle of a save file.
This also had a knock-on effect of making the game's secrets and rewards less, well, rewarding. because I had nothing of consequence to upgrade with said rewards. This runs counter to previous games that required the usage of multiple weapons to get by because of how they managed ammo counts. Here, everything was doable with ease via the stick gun's infinite ammo, the shield, and parrying.
So let me get this straight, you're complaining the game is too boring because you're only using the fucking impaler, while at the same time actively going out of your way to not upgrade the other weapons in the game and see what they can do. Oh, but Thunder, you say? He said he's able to clear all the encounters using just that loadout, so why should he switch? Well, bit of a spoiler, but later in the video he says he's playing on Hurt Me Plenty difficulty, meaning there are 2 other standard difficulty options that he can pick through to make the game more challenging and try to push him to use more tactics, and that's before we discuss things like the difficulty sliders. Oh, and on top of that, he also brings up Doom 2016 requiring you to switch weapons because of ammo management, when that could not be further from the case. You could carry so much fucking ammo in Doom 2016, where I could legitimately use nothing but the super shotgun and siege mode Gauss cannon for the entire game if I wanted to.
Oh yeah, fuck, parrying. It's in so many games nowadays. I believe the catalyst for this hitting the mainstream was probably FromSoft and especially Sekiro, and this mechanic bleeding into other genres isn't inherently a bad thing. Its inclusion can make a project come to life, like in Expedition 33's case, but why is it so prevalent? Well, apart from them being player-driven and rewarding in their own right, the windows in which parries are available are so nebulous and invisible to players, it makes them exceptionally easy to adjust on the fly to create exciting moments that feel earned purely through skill, but in fact are manufactured by the developers. You have the player learn the mechanic and slowly introduce harder and harder parry timings as they progress through the game. Then in pivotal boss fights, you can adjust the timings of their flurry attacks to make it a lot easier for players to deflect them, but in their minds feel if it's their skill that's led to this outcome. This all being done invisibly by handling the parry timings and juxtaposing them against their harder inclusions prior in the game. Doom has parries, a lot of them in fact. It's probably the core mechanic of the game. And don't get me wrong, it's probably its best aspect, but just like with its platforming, it doesn't quite understand what makes parrying engaging. First of all, it's way too easy. Not just with its base windows, but also you can parry things when they're apparently off the screen, so your timing and even your positioning seemingly don't matter at all.
Now, admittedly, I haven't really tried parrying anything off screen, but as for the parry windows, again, increasing the difficulty reduces the parry windows, and higher difficulties have more strict timings. And on top of that, there's also the difficulty sliders that allow you to just adjust the parry timing individually if you want. Like, it just sounds to me like all the issues that you're having with this game's combat loop can be solved by increasing the difficulty to ultraviolence or nightmare.
To have the core manufactured moments we just discussed, you need to have areas where the player fails, and I never failed in Doom the Dark Ages. All enemies do the same exact parryable attack patterns throughout the game's entire runtime, which is all well and good if you have a vast enemy variety, but regardless of whether you're storming a medieval castle, in the pits of hell, in an eldritch nightmare realm, or inside the stomach of an old god, you'll be seeing the same suite of enemies over and over and over again doing the exact same attacks.
Yet another interesting claim. Let's see if it holds up. So, during the on-foot sections, not the mech or dragon sections, just the on-foot sections, there are 26 enemy types in Doom the Dark Ages. For reference, Doom Eternal's base game campaign has 27 different enemy types. So, why is this only suddenly now a problem in Doom the Dark Ages? Because of the parry mechanic? Well, I could say the same thing about the dash mechanic in Doom Eternal and how you have to manage that to avoid enemy attacks at the right time. So, where's the problem?
What is the problem?
Combo this with being able to one-shot most of them, and this takes combat from being a frantic fight for your life like in previous games to a slog that I barely needed to pay attention to. Mainly because there are no consequences. Most games that have an emphasis on parrying will include unparryable attacks mixed in to force the players to pay attention and reset their rhythm. But there's nothing of the sort here, unless you count the red attacks, but even if you try to parry a red attack rather than the correct green ones, your shield will still block it, so you can just spam the button and everything will be fine.
That's actually a complete lie, because if you just let your shield get hit with attacks that aren't parryable, your shield will break and you'll be left temporarily unable to use it, which leaves you very vulnerable.
I will say this though, the only time the game felt remotely challenging was during the final boss fight. Literally take the gloves off and show you what the game could be if they had doubled down on this parry mechanic. Relentlessly parrying his onslaughts is the kind of parry porn I want to see. But barely any of the game has this level of depth.
You say that like there aren't other bosses or even regular enemies that are designed around parrying. For example, pretty early into the game, you'll encounter a boss called the Vagary Champion, and the entire point is that you're supposed to parry back their projectile attacks so that you can get behind it and deal higher damage. The Agadon and Komodo champions are similarly reliant on parries, and you'll later find regular enemy variations of them later in the game.
Now, full disclosure, I played on the game's normal difficulty, as I always do, to see what the developers consider a reasonable amount of challenge for the average player, and honestly, I don't know if they thought their target demographic was literally brain dead, but this combat in combination with its puzzles and navigation hand-holding, I honestly felt kind of insulted playing this game. Like it was designed for children, but in reality it's a mature 17+ bloodbath.
Well, dude, have you maybe considered that as somebody that runs a YouTube channel centered around analyzing video games, that you might just be well more skilled at this sort of thing than the average player? If you find Hurt Me Plenty to be too easy, that's fine, but that's why higher difficulty options exist. Not all players are going to use that. There's several people that maybe only play like a few video games each year that find this level of challenge appropriate. Clearly, you don't think it's appropriate for you as you find it too easy, but the solution is right there. Raise the fucking difficulty.
Now, as a dev myself, I know they would have relentlessly tested this game with a wide variety of gamers to find the median of challenge needed to make for a compelling difficulty, but this just feels like they went a step too far. The question is, does it feel better to require competent players to move the difficulty slider up as they find the game too easy, or does it feel worse for the casual players to bump the difficulty down because they found it too hard? Now, that's not an easy question to answer.
Really? Seems like an easy question if you ask me. If I know I am more skilled at a certain type of game, then I'm gonna play on a higher difficulty. Alright, the last part of this dude's video is just him criticizing the mech and dragon sections, which I kinda have to agree, those sections were pretty mid. So I'm just gonna end the video off here, but I guess the key takeaway here is that if you're playing a game with multiple difficulty options and you find it to be too easy, then raise the difficulty. But anyways, that's gonna be about it for this video. If you enjoyed, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more, and tell me what you think about this dude's video on Doom the Dark Ages. Anyways, that's it. Peace!